Peace, what's up? This is Jarrell with Quantum Light Consciousness. I wanted to do a quick little conscious review for Stranger Things and the new series of Stranger Things 2 that's coming out. I kind of just wanted to touch on this because nobody's talking about it. It's pretty obvious what they're doing in the show. I don't know if they know what they're doing. They're kind of just acting it out. Um, then again, I'm not sure why any of the light workers aren't really like keying in on this. Because when you wake up dimensional, you have to go through all the shit that they're doing in the show. Um, so here we go. All right. So if you ever seen Stranger Things, you've seen how the main kid, he's like a normal kid or whatever, and then there's a friend who gets kidnapped, and they all think he's dead. Sorry for the spoilers because this is what happens in the first season. So if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it, go watch it. But I'm giving you the entire breakdown. Um, so their friend, the kid's friend, there's a group of friends, and one of the kids gets kidnapped, and he gets kidnapped by a kind of like a parasite, like a parasite being who the United States government kind of just like works with and is experimenting with, but they have no idea what they're doing in the show. They just, they take kids. Actually, they use their own kids for scientific experiments and turn them into psychological weapons with super psychic powers for weaponry. Um, but one of the kids, he gets kidnapped by one of their experiments that they find, or some you know some creature that they unveil from experimenting, and he gets kidnapped. And the entire show is kind of like based on soul retrieval. Have you ever heard of that concept, shamanic soul retrieval? And that's also kind of like what you have to do on yourself when you wake up dimensionally. So if you've seen the show, they basically search for the kid, and they have to go along like the magnetic lines to find where the kid was last seen, because the creature pulls them into the underworld. And it's like a huge metaphor, the way that happens. Um, the show's awesome. Like, it really takes you back. Like, it reminds me a lot when like I was growing up, riding bikes around neighborhoods and stuff like that. But um, yeah, the main premise is basically finding that soul and reclaiming it and bringing them back. So that's what they do for their friend. At the end of the show, at the end of the series, they have a showdown with like the creature. Um, so the creature is like, it's like a parasite that feeds off the kids in the neighborhood. It's like a body snatcher. It'll snatch like kids or whatever. But where it gets like really similar to what is actually going on, you know, on the dimensional plane in 3D and 4D is what they do in the next season. Because in the first season, they find the kid, they kind of just like communicate through dimensions through a binary code, and then they find out the kid's alive, and then the kid eventually finds his way back, and everything's normal until the second season. So where it gets similar is in the second season, when they see that the entire creature is like a collective. It's like a collective parasite that is kind of just like trying to turn the world upside down. They call it the upside down, you know, and that's exactly where most people are if they're not awake. They don't know it, but you're dimensionally upside down. You're dimensionally. I don't want. It's not you're like hung, like you're not like hanging, like, but you're bound. You're upside down. You're not upright. You're not connected. You're not consciously connected to source and in your power, and your third eye isn't on, so you can't see that. So you're kind of just walking around, kind of just like plugged into this collective parasite that like it kind of runs you. subconsciously. You're still yourself. You're still you, but you have, all these types of thought forms and emotional patterns and actions that kind of just aren't congruent to the true, authentic version of you, as pure source consciousness, or as your higher self, or as your fifth dimensional self. So that's kind of where most people are. They haven't woken up, and they kind of get plugged into this parasitic force that is permeating everything and every most beings that are on the planet through the technology and whatnot. So that's the congruencies. Um, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but it's kind of crazy the way they depict that, blatantly on the television screen, and most people don't even know what they're watching. So, this is kind of just like a heads up because nobody else is covering this. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. So there it is. Um, but the show is very entertaining. I don't know if I'm gonna watch the next season just because it's getting like more like horrific. It's kind of getting like just gore. You know, more just shit. But I see enough of that. But my most favorite part of the first season is when they come toe to toe with the parasite being at the very end, and one of the kids, his name's Lucas. He's like, the the thing breaks into the school and then it corners him, and the kid's like, "Eat shit," and he like tries to like he tries to kill it with like a little slingshot that they like bless or they do something with because they're in the Dungeon and Dragons, and they say that could kill it, but he uses it and it didn't work. But the girl with the superpowers, she she kind of just like subdues the thing and takes it back to the underworld. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities um, with the show and with what is going on. I know these are radical concepts, and if you're still listening, then like thank you, um, and like to just say to kind of just connect yourself to source consciousness and work on getting yourself out of the parasitic grid, fourth dimensional Earth. You know, that's what this channel is for. It's for to wake people up and to point out the the blatancies of similarities of what Hollywood directors are getting fed to put on the screen, just so you're like, oh yeah, oh that's normal. Like horror shows, yeah, parasites, yeah. No, it's not normal. It's not. Um, that's not how we were bred to be raised in an environment. That's not how we're supposed to exist. We're not supposed to exist with parasites feeding off of our every thought, our every emotion, and the way we live and work. That's not how it's supposed to be. So, yeah, some meditations available to do that if you haven't. So just stay tuned on the blog. They're on the blog. Read the blog, and I'd like to thank you for listening. And on a lighter note, um, maybe I will watch the second season just to see what happens. It's pretty entertaining. I like the characters, and oh yeah, and the entire uh, experiments that they do with the kids, they're actually doing that. The United States government actually does that with their own kids. Um, on a lighter note, on a lighter note, um, stay safe out there, stay conscious, and always question, what you're viewing on the old TV screen. What kind of programming is being simulated. All right, much love.